Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
I sat across from Jane in the dimly lit office, my lawyer's eyes narrowing as she flipped through the thick pages of the prenuptial agreement. Her usual calm was replaced by an expression I couldn't quite read, surprise mixed with something else, something bordering on disbelief. She closed the file, leaned back, and fixed me with a steady gaze. "Harris," she began carefully, "did you read through these revisions Megan proposed?" My stomach tightened. Revisions? What revisions? I leaned forward, pulse racing, as Jane passed the papers back to me, pointing to several clauses highlighted in red ink. "She's claiming 50% of your company assets if the marriage ends, plus lifetime alimony," Jane said slowly, each word like a small jab. "It's extensive, to say the least." A shiver traced up my spine. I'd sat with Megan only weeks ago, going over a simple agreement that ensured her comfort, yes, but nothing like this. I studied the clauses, my hands tightening around the pages. How could she have slipped this in without me noticing? "Megan agreed to the standard arrangement," I muttered, though now doubt gnawed at my certainty. This isn't what we discussed." "Clearly," Jane said, her voice edged with sympathy. "But these clauses didn't add themselves, Harris. I think it's time to ask her some questions." By the time I arrived home, the questions I wanted to ask were burning inside me. The apartment was dark, and for a moment, I thought Megan wasn't back yet. But then I heard her humming in the kitchen, her voice soft and carefree, like everything was perfectly normal. I dropped my keys on the counter, the sound sharpened the quiet. She turned, smiling. "Hey, you're home early," she said, her eyes bright, reaching for a bottle of wine. But I couldn't reciprocate. I could only stare, the papers clutched tightly in my hand. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold, and she paused, bottle in hand, the smile faltering. "What's wrong?" I held up the prenup, the pages trembling just slightly as I faced her. "Did you add these without telling me?" Her face went blank, but only for a split second. Then a glint of defiance sparked in her eyes as she set the bottle down with a deliberate clink. "It's just a few changes," she said, folding her arms, a defensive edge creeping into her tone. "Harris, come on. You know I've given up a lot for this relationship. My part-time job, my life's plans. Shouldn't I have some security?" "Security?" I echoed, my heart pounding. 50% of everything I own? Lifetime alimony? Megan, you didn't just make a few changes. You completely rewrote the agreement behind my back." She huffed, her gaze turning steely. "I deserve to know I'll be okay if things go wrong. I gave up so much for you, Harris. You expect me to just, be left with nothing?" "You wouldn't be left with nothing," I said, trying to steady my voice. "We discussed this, agreed on a fair settlement. But this is betrayal." "Betrayal?" Her voice grew louder, challenging as she took a step toward me. "Don't you dare make this about me being greedy, Harris. You're the one who wanted a prenup in the first place." "This was supposed to be about fairness, Megan," I replied, feeling a coldness creep over me. "But fairness doesn't mean taking half of everything I've spent my life building." We stood in silence, her gaze locked on mine, fierce and unyielding. And in that moment, something shifted. Something vital broke between us. I realized that Megan hadn't been the person I thought she was, and a gnawing question settled deep in my gut. If she could do this now, how far would she go to get what she wanted? She turned away, pouring herself a glass of wine, a dismissive tilt to her chin. "Maybe you should think about how this relationship has been for me, Harris. You owe me that much." As I watched her, a sense of clarity and betrayal washed over me. I wasn't sure who this woman was anymore, but one thing was clear. I would never trust her again. The next evening, Megan and I sat across from each other in the living room, a tense silence thickening the air. I had spent the entire day replaying last night's confrontation in my head, and I knew she sensed it. Every small move she made felt deliberate, controlled, as though she was bracing herself for what was coming. She finally looked up, her face a careful mask. "Are we really doing this again, Harris?" "Yes," I replied, voice steady but low. "I need to understand how you thought altering our prenup, without telling me, was anything but betrayal. Do you even realize what you've done?" She took a breath, her eyes flickering, and then spoke in a practiced calm. "Harris, I had every right to add those changes. Do you know how much I sacrificed for us? I left my job, my independence, for you, for us. Don't you think I deserve security?" I felt a surge of disbelief. "So that's it?" I asked, almost laughing. "I thought you loved me, Megan, but apparently you love the security more, and now you're trying to justify sneaking these changes in, like it's something I should be grateful for." Her face tightened. "You think this is just about money," she snapped. "You're the one who's obsessed with control." You wanted a prenup in the first place, remember? Well, maybe I just wanted to say in what happens to my life too. Her words hung in the air, but they did nothing to ease the sense of betrayal that pounded in my chest. I shook my head slowly, feeling the last threads of trust slipping away. If you told me this was what you needed, maybe we could have worked something out. But going behind my back, changing everything I built, I paused, my voice hardening. That's not love, Megan. That's manipulation. Her jaw clenched and her hands balled into fists. You're making me out to be the villain, Harris. All I wanted was a future I could count on. But if you can't see that, she broke off, glaring at me, her eyes dark with defiance. I let out a breath, feeling a heavy calm settle over me. I think you need to leave, I said, each word measured and final. We're done here. The shock that flickered in her eyes was quickly masked by anger. She grabbed her purse, shooting me a final, seething look. Fine, she said, but don't think you're getting off that easy. You'll regret this, Harris. Mark my words. With that, she turned and walked out, the door slamming behind her, leaving a hollow silence in her wake. It started with a simple notification from my bank. I opened my phone, expecting the usual update, but what I saw made my jaw clench. A series of large, unauthorized charges on my credit card. Hotel stays, designer stores, extravagant dinners. The total was climbing fast. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself before dialing Megan's number. Really, Megan? I said as soon as she picked up. She laughed, a hollow sound. Oh, Harris, you didn't think I just disappeared quietly, did you? I tightened my grip on the phone. So, this is your idea of revenge? Bleeding my accounts dry. Revenge? Her voice dripped with mock innocence. After everything I've done for you, I deserve a little compensation, don't you think? I forced myself to stay calm. I already froze your access to the joint accounts, Megan. Return what you've taken before this goes further than it needs to. Oh, Harris, her tone turned icy. You made me look like the villain here, didn't you? Did you tell everyone how controlling you were? How I gave up everything for you? I could feel the words were a setup. What are you talking about? Check your social media if you're that clueless, she replied, hanging up before I could respond. I tapped open my social media and found her latest post, a long emotional rant painting herself as the victim. Friends and even some of my family had commented with sympathy, some of them condemning me outright. I stared, anger simmering, as I read through her accusations of stinginess and manipulation. Just then, a call came in, my sister. Harris, what's going on? She asked, her voice tense. Megan's saying you controlled her, wouldn't let her work, that she has nothing now. No, that's true, I replied, barely able to keep my voice steady. She's spending my money to spite me, and now she's dragging all of you into it. My sister sighed, sounding torn. Well, no, Harris. She's telling everyone she left her job for you. It was a part-time job she wanted to quit anyway, I interrupted. Look, this is a mess she's making, and I'm handling it. After hanging up, I called my bank to dispute the charges, then cut off Megan's access to every account and card she'd been using. She could try all the manipulation she wanted, but I wasn't letting her control this narrative. And as I sat there, the phone buzzing non-stop with notifications, a resolve began to settle in. If Megan wanted a battle, she would get one, but on my terms. The weight of Megan's chaos had settled heavily over my life, but it was time to reclaim my sanity and security. I walked into my apartment, scanning the emptied space. The site was jarring, drawers left open, clothing scattered, and furniture shifted awkwardly as though she'd staged a hasty exit. But she hadn't left in silence. Her parting gift was a mess of invoices and payment requests I didn't authorize. I went straight to my desk, grabbing my phone to call the building manager. Hi, this is Harris, I said, feeling the tension in my own voice. I need to revoke Megan Price's access to the building immediately, and make sure her key fob is deactivated. There was a pause on the other end. Of course, Mr. Harris. I'll update the security system right away. Hanging up, I felt a rush of relief, but I knew it wasn't over. There was still the matter of reclaiming my finances and securing my business. I picked up the phone again, dialing my lawyer, Matthew. I hope you're sitting down, I told him when he answered. After what you've told me, I've started making a habit of it, he replied dryly. What happened now? Megan's been charging my accounts like a bottomless ATM, I said, and she's turned her pity party online, claiming I'm controlling and manipulative. I need to cut off any access she still has and ensure she's out of my life for good. Matthew was quiet for a moment. Understood. Let's start by freezing any remaining joint accounts and formally reclaiming the apartment. I'll draft a cease and desist regarding her social media antics too. We can't have her damaging your reputation further. I could hear him typing in the background, moving swiftly to set my life back on track. A few hours later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, signing document after document, feeling the grip of her manipulation slowly loosening. As I finished the last page, Matthew looked up, offering a rare, reassuring smile. "She'll have a hard time finding any cracks left to exploit Harris. You've taken the right steps." I nodded, finally feeling a sense of control returning. I had no intention of playing the victim in Megan's twisted game. I'd move out of the wreckage of her deceit and into the space where my life was mine again. As the final paperwork settled, I sat alone in my apartment, now clean and silent, a stark contrast to the chaos Megan had left behind. The remnants of her presence, the scattered bills and empty promises, were gone. What remained was a strange, hollow calm. But just as I felt myself beginning to breathe freely again, my phone buzzed with a message notification. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Harris, I just wanted you to know that I've met with my lawyer. You think you can throw me out and leave me with nothing? Watch your back." I stared at the screen, the words chilling in their simplicity. I shook my head, letting out a bitter laugh. Megan still believed she held some power, even as everything around her unraveled. But this time, I wasn't going to be intimidated. Later that evening, Matthew called to inform me of some final developments. Turns out Megan had racked up debt on credit cards you didn't even know about. He said, the fatigue evident in his voice. "But since we've frozen your accounts, she's got nothing left to fall back on." Relief washed over me. So she's truly out of options. Matthew hesitated. "There's one last thing you should know. During the investigation, we discovered that Megan had been in touch with your business partner, Greg. It looks like she tried to work with him to position herself as a business partner in your company, hoping to leverage some sort of settlement." I was stunned. So she was scheming with Greg too. "She tried," Matthew replied. "Fortunately, Greg saw right through her. But this betrayal, it's a reminder. Be careful who you trust, Harris. Not everyone's here for the right reasons." The truth of his words sank in. Megan had shown me the hard way that true partnership couldn't be based on lies. I'd given her access to my life, and she'd nearly taken it all. But she'd failed, and I was stronger now. As I ended the call, a strange, unexpected calm settled over me, and with that, I put my phone down, leaving her last message unanswered, finally ready to live my life without shadows.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.